The grinding of iron tracks rumbled across the wide-open fields of Donetsk, where the Russian army had just unleashed a massive steel punch with the ambition of crushing all defensive lines and devouring Ukraine's reserve forces. Spearheading the assault was a formation of T-90 Ms. Moscow's $4 million Pride, a machine touted as invincible against all Western weapons. Based on deep battle doctrine, Russian commanders believed that overwhelming numbers and advanced explosive reactive armor would allow them to easily rupture the front line through brute force. However, the Russian army was completely unaware that they were charging straight into a kill zone designed with brutal sophistication. Ukraine did not choose a head-on confrontation. They had laid a multi-layered defensive net. From 3D, printed stealth minefields hidden beneath the ground to the all-seeing eyes of reconnaissance drones waiting 24/7. Before the Russian armor could even face an Abrams or a Bradley, all coordinates had been firmly locked. The assault quickly turned into a bloody disaster when a $200 FPV drone plunged out of nowhere, turning the $4 million machine into a fireball and triggering a chain reaction collapse that left over 1,159 Russian tanks obliterated. How could Ukraine's multi-layered defensive net coordinate so seamlessly to shred the Russian armored formations? What desperation forced Moscow to throw a motorcycle army into a high-speed suicidal gamble? And what brutal warning does the obliteration of the T-90M deliver about the future of mechanized warfare? Let us dissect this deadly trap in detail right now. The dead silence on the field was not a sign of peace, but the final click of a trigger before the true nightmare crashed down upon the Russian army. As the lead T-90M, the pride of the Russian defense industry, raised its 125mm gun barrel to fire powerful clearing shots, the crew still believed they were dominating the game. But right at the climax of that confidence, the distinct, piercing buzz of an electric motor rang out, small yet carrying the omen of death. From hundreds of meters high, an FPV first-person view drone, a cheap weapon costing a mere $200, plunged like a hunting falcon at terrifying speed. The Ukrainian pilot controlling the drone through a virtual reality headset calmly chose the most critical weak point, the gap between the turret and the hull. The direct impact detonated the shaped charge explosive, its extremely powerful thermal penetrator ripping through the fragile top armor and directly hitting the ammunition compartment below. A second later, the entire battlefield shook with an earth-shattering explosion. The $4 million T-90M turned into a giant torch. The turret, weighing tens of tons, was hurled into the sky by the brutal jack-in-the-box effect, leaving behind a pile of scrap metal billowing pitch-black smoke. This was not just a material loss, but a massive psychological shock dealt to the entire Russian formation advancing behind. The hunter had now officially become the hunted in a war of extreme asymmetry. The chain reaction collapse occurred instantly as the Russian armored formation fell into a state of utter panic. The tank commanders in the rear, instead of continuing the assault, tried to steer their massive machines past the wreckage of the lead vehicle to find an escape route or a hiding position. But that was exactly when the stealth minefield trap unleashed its destructive effect. Another T-90M, in a desperate attempt to regain offensive momentum, ground its tracks over a perfectly camouflaged anti-tank mine. The explosion tore through the track system and blew off the road wheels, nailing the iron monster in place and turning it into an immobile target practice dummy. The crew had no chance of survival as the next wave of Ukrainian FPV drones were already waiting, taking turns diving down to finish off the paralyzed target. The nightmare did not stop there. An armored personnel carrier, APC, carrying over a squad of Russian infantrymen, upon witnessing the destruction of the lead tanks, frantically turned around to flee. In the chaos, the driver veered off the safe route and detonated a heavy mine block. The blast hurled the APC into the air, turning it into a fiercely burning steel coffin. Not a single one of the more than a dozen soldiers on board managed to escape in time. Screams, the explosions of reserve ammunition, and the pungent smell of gunpowder engulfed the entire kill zone, turning the ambitious assault into a scene of bloody carnage. Amidst the Russian formation crumbling and losing its bearings in the minefield, Ukraine's mobile reserve forces from the 47th Mechanized Brigade finally unleashed the killing blow. Without needing the direct appearance of the Abrams for a head-on confrontation, Bradley infantry fighting vehicles advanced to occupy prime positions. The Bradley's 25mm Bushmaster automatic cannon began spitting fire at a terrifying rate, shredding the trenches and bunkers where Russian soldiers were trying to hold their ground after their armored vehicles were destroyed. The Bradley's armor-piercing rounds left no chance of survival for the enemy infantry, creating a dense screen of fire that blocked every avenue of retreat. In the sky, Ukraine's fleet of reconnaissance drones continued to observe coldly, designating targets for artillery to rain precise salvos onto the remaining groups of Russian soldiers trying to scatter across the open fields. The Russian soldiers lucky enough to escape from the wrecks of the armored vehicles now realized a grim truth: nowhere was safe. Ukrainian FPV drones continuously executed kamikaze flights, diving down onto every fleeing individual, turning the retreat into a ruthless hunt. The seamless integration of cheap drone technology, smart mines, and the mobile firepower of the 47th Brigade completely broke the fighting will of the Russian army in less than 30 minutes. This defeat not only reflected Russia's weakness in combined arms coordination, but also revealed a terrifying shift in the battlefield balance of power, where million-dollar machines could be utterly subdued by modified civilian devices. As Russia's traditional ground and air firepower gradually became powerless against this sophisticated defense system, they were forced to resort to solutions more reckless and desperate than ever to maintain the offensive pressure.
Загружай! Займаємо укоп противника! Займаємо укоп противника!
Ситуація така. Go there!
Муха!
There.
Своя! Тільки, блядь, не відбив нам.
Заводи людей в укрытие, заводи людей в укрытие.
кулемет. Плюс, подражай! Займаємо укоп противника! Займаємо укоп противника!
Ситуація така. Go there!
Машину!
Drop all your shit! Only take personal weapons and guns!